just wait for some people to come in. This is always the best bit. Just waiting. Hello, Rachel. Hello, Sarah. Welcome. I'll wait for a few more people, just in case. Sorry I'm late. I was gripped to the New Year Top of the Pops, watching the Sausage Roll Song video that's Christmas #1. I used to work for Official Charts, actually. I left in January, so always taken an interest in the Christmas #1. Okay, so I'm going to read something from Magnificent Sons again. My final reading of the year. I don't think I'll be able to squeeze in another one before the end of the day, although you never know. With it being New Year's Eve, some of you might know, but on the Guyliner I have a very popular post that I wrote 7 years ago tonight called The Hogmanay Kiss, and that takes place New Year's Eve 1997, I think, in Edinburgh, where I, well, to put it very bluntly, I kissed a guy for the first time. So it was quite a momentous occasion in my life, and I always knew that if I ever did get to writing fiction, then I would like to incorporate it in some way. For the first book, it didn't really fit because the main character James in The Last Romeo was kind of already out and not really finding himself. But in the second novel, The Magnificent Sons, which looks like this at the moment, but will look very different come April, with it being a book about the self-discovery of a bisexual guy, I thought it would fit quite well. So what I did was I fictionalized the my own life to become Jake's. A bit different for Jake than it was for me, really, for various reasons. Mainly that Jake has already kissed another gentleman at this point. So this takes place in chapter 5 of Magnificent Sons, and what's happening is the main character Jake, who has admitted to himself that he's bisexual but hasn't told anybody else. He has gone to Edinburgh with his girlfriend Amelia, and they are staying with Amelia's gay brother Freddie, who is very confident, very sure of himself, quite cocky, I suppose you would say, and he has been bullied by Amelia into taking them all to Edinburgh's famous or infamous street party, which takes place on New Year's Eve on Princes Street, which is the main drag in Edinburgh, opposite the castle. It's a beautiful setting, and basically every year they let far too many people onto this street to party the night away. Now, it's mainly tourists that go and do this, because if you live in Edinburgh, and anyone who lives in Edinburgh who's watching this will say that you don't really go to the street party in Edinburgh if you live there. It's for people who are out-of-towners. So Freddie is bullied into taking Amelia and Jake because she's always wanted to go. So they go there and they meet a few of Freddie's friends. And ever since his brother Trick came out as gay, Jake has been kind of questioning his own sexuality, realises that he's bisexual. And while he's not doing anything about it yet, definitely that curiosity has been awoken. So I'm going to read the section that happens on Princes Street. Basically, they are just setting out for their Hogmanay, as they call it in Scotland, celebration. And this is the moment when everything changes. It certainly did for me all those years ago. Lol. Okay. It's very serious. Jake shook all the hands and tried his best to hear the introductions to Freddie's friends over the pub's boisterous din. Anna, small, blonde, dealy boppers on over her woolly hat. Samir, smiley, huge brown eyes, enviable quiff, already tipsy. And Lorcan, bright blue eyes, jawline like Buzz Lightyear, and menacingly tall. Did Freddie not know any ugly people? Amelia was looking at the boys appreciatively. Jake had never noticed her ogle anyone before. Had she always done it? He couldn't tell if the men were gay. How did you tell these days? Men were unpredictable. Lorcan wore a rugby shirt, Samir a pinky ring. Amelia's first night awkwardness around her brother had vanished, and she was now poking him in the ribs and threatening to reveal his childhood indiscretions. She'd found safety in numbers. On the street, they stamped their feet for warmth, dodging unsteady tourists who were seeing it all from behind their camera phones, and found themselves sharing space with two guys in kilts with a gaggle of girls surrounding them. "Let's have a look under your skirt then, Angus," bellowed one. "Are you a true Scotsman?" screamed another. Freddie and Lorcan joined in the chanting. "How embarrassing," Jake found himself saying, although he wouldn't have minded a peep under the kilt himself. Samir stood alongside. Don't be fooled. They love it. No man out in a kilt at Hogmanay wants to be left alone." Jake laughed. "Are you telling me that they're asking for it?" "Trust me. They'll end up getting off with everyone on Princess Street." Samir looked straight at Jake. "It's the only reason I ever wear one." "See?" Freddie, Lorcan, Amelia and Anna were now fully integrated, circling the man and one of the women who were now locked in a very involved kiss, their tongues like tentacles. Amelia waved at them. "We're playing Truth or Dare. Come on." Oh, memories of lame teenage parties. Jake's life had been too uneventful for any shocking truths, so his stock answer was that he'd seen a dead body. This was partially true. When Mrs. Renard from the flats hadn't been seen for a few days, 8-year-old Jake had peeped through the letterbox and seen the toe of the slipper of his now former neighbour. Tonight, it would have to be dares. He wandered over with Samir. Lorcan was fulfilling his dare of smoking 3 cigarettes at once. "Right," screamed one of the women to the first guy in a kilt. "Dare you to kiss one of the girls, and whoever it is can't say no." Jake muttered. "This is possibly one of the most inappropriate times to have women kissing men against their will, to be honest." Samir chuckled beside him. "Totally." Clearly hoping to be picked, the woman who set the dare stepped forward, but the guy motioned to Amelia. She looked horrified. I'm not single." The woman, reeling from rejection, fixed a narrow eye on her. "I said kiss you, not fuck you. Your man won't mind. He's not here." Jake seized a rare opportunity to be gallant. "I am here, actually, and, I think she'd prefer to kiss me at midnight. No offence." The man in the kilt sized him up. Jake hoped that his breeziness would save him from a smacking. The guy was twice Jake's size and was standing in the middle of Edinburgh in a kilt. Jake knew without looking that under that kilt lay a huge pair of balls made of iron. Luckily for Jake, as big as this guy's testes may have been, his sense of righteousness was larger. "I'm not kissing a man's girlfriend in front of him," he said. "It's not right." The woman was not to be placated. "Forfeit!" she screamed, crunching flat a can of lager and opening another in one swift movement. "And I get to choose it." Revenge was writ large upon her face. "Kiss a man," she said, "for 15 seconds. The crowd whooped. Out of the corner of his eye, Jake saw Freddie and Lorcan high-five. He really hoped that he wouldn't be the one picked. Putting aside how large and scary the guy's mouth was, what would it mean if he was seen kissing another man, right there on the street? In those seconds, Jake fully catastrophized the scenario. Maybe the kiss would be like Enchanted, and a huge finger, wearing a fur-cuffed leopard print glove perhaps, would descend from the sky to point at Jake and tell everyone he fancied men too. Maybe Jake would be branded with a huge rainbow or unicorn on his chest after they pulled apart. If Jake refused, would it look like he was protesting too much? Should he kiss back and be good at it, or purposefully bad? The man was pretty drunk. There was every chance he'd puke in Jake's throat. Jake remembered his only kiss with a man so far. Evan's mouth, the faint taste of tobacco and Tizer. He was pulled out of this memory when the guy in the kilt barged straight past him, grabbed Samir and went into a full snog. faces twisting every which way. Jake unconsciously touched his own mouth, in relief perhaps that he'd been spared. Samir responded enthusiastically, manoeuvring the kilt guy round until Jake could see Samir's face. Samir's eyes were open wide and looking right at Jake. Jake had seen enough. "I need the loo," he said. "Back in a sec." He reached a side street with a row of portable loos, queues snaking in front of each one. Everyone coming out of them looked like they should be at home in bed or perhaps having their stomach pumped. Jake watched in wonder as a drunk woman asked another woman in a huge fur coat if she could piss in her handbag. And then, been waiting long? Samir. Jake started to feel lightheaded, as if the alcohol he'd been throwing down his neck in defence against the cold was finally hitting its target. They chatted as they waited for the loo, checking their watches for midnight. "I have a confession," said Samir. Jake, with a creeping dread, attempted a carefree laugh, but it wouldn't come. "Okay." "The dare before," said Samir. "That was, I asked the lady to say that." Jake's lips began to go numb. "What? Why?" "It was a ruse." "A ruse?" "Aye, to see how you reacted. To check." Jake was frozen to the core, yet still managed to blush, heat rising from the pit of his stomach. Anyone touching him now would need immediate treatment for first-degree burns. "Check what?" Suddenly, a voice behind them shouted, "Get a fucking move on, you pair of bufties!" The loo in front was free, so Jake leapt in, peeing shakily thanks to a heady combination of sub-zero temperatures and terror. His mind raced. He wanted to take his time, hide, but that would make him very unpopular with the scores of revellers outside. When he was done, waggling his fingers so the antibacterial foam would dry quicker, he looked around, but Samir was nowhere to be seen. Phew, crisis averted, right? Then, a hand on his shoulder. Samir's eyes were wide. He looked nervous. "I want to talk to you." "What about?" Maybe if Jake played dumb as long as possible, they could abandon whatever this was and go back to everyone. Midnight was close. Samir, however, was closer. "About you." Samir's eyes were trained on Jake's. You're gay, aren't you? Or bi, at least. Maybe? I mean," he scratched his head. "I hope you are. Are you?" Jake pulled his mouth in tight. "No, I'm not." It wasn't very convincing. Samir leaned in closer. "Are you sure? I've got a spidey sense about these things." Jake looked around them. It was crowded, loud. He couldn't remember how to get back to the group. He ran his hands over his face, trying to think. He could run, maybe, let whatever this opportunity was drop out of his grasp. But it had been said. It was out there. He'd been seen. He didn't even care what gave him away anymore. Finally, he grabbed Samir's sleeve and pulled him down the street. "Come on then, Peter Parker." They didn't speak, took left turns and right, the shouts and screams of the crowd becoming a faraway drone happening somewhere else. They came to a dark, narrow street free of Hogmanay drunks. Jake spotted an even smaller alleyway running off it, a fire exit with steel bars hemming in the staircase. They scooted down it wordlessly. It began to drizzle. There was one streetlight, glowing bright orange. Jake knew this would be momentous, even if they just stood there looking at one another and nothing more. Samir cleared his throat. "I want to kiss you, but not if you don't want to." Jake's head was a supernova of confusion, curiosity and fear. He looked away and deep into the damp cobbles beneath him and thought of Amelia, back on Princes Street, waiting for him. He couldn't do this. He'd never cheated on her, hardly even looked at another woman. Or man, mostly. Well, there was that guy in the gym, but honestly, he did nothing but walk around the locker room with his tackle flapping about. And this would be cheating, wouldn't it? But he could stop it, right now. He and Samir could walk back to the group with dignity intact, and he could snuggle into Amelia and feel her fake fur hood against his chin and smell her perfume, and all would be as it should. So what if Samir thought he was gay or bi? Jake hadn't confirmed it. But he had dragged him here, and every second they spent together made the situation more irreversible, risky. But what good was caution now? He always looked away in the changing rooms, lowered his voice an octave, never hugged his mates when celebrating winning a point at squash. He always did everything right, kept it in check, endless editing. Just once, he wanted to let go. In his head, he apologised to Amelia, made a promise that after tonight it would be all about her. He'd never do it again. He just needed to see, feel it, to know whether Evan had been a fluke. He would make it up to Amelia, anything she wanted. Anything. Jake put his hand round Samir's waist and drew him nearer. It felt odd, firmer and broader. No crook between the hip and the waist, much squarer. The fire escape pressed into his back, the damp chill of metal finding its way through his layers until his skin started to numb. Jake found himself surprised by Samir's scent, musky, spicy, not the floral freshness of Amelia. The stubble against his own felt alien for a few seconds before it began to feel perfect, and soon Jake was responding to the forcefulness of Samir's mouth, like he'd always kissed that way. Somewhere, on another planet, a crowd started to count down from 10, and everything melted away. When they broke apart, it was a different year, and Jake felt like the future had got sick of waiting. It had come to hurry him along. It was the most devastating, frightening, exhilarating feeling. That hadn't just been a countdown to another year. It was a warning, telling him that he was running out of time. That's it. There's a bit further on where it gets very steamy in a bathroom, but I think we should leave it there because it's barely 20 to 6. Just to say that I really appreciate it that everyone has bought the book this year, Magnificent Sons. I know it's been a tough year for everybody, and at times shops haven't even been open for you to go and get it, but I really do appreciate it. It makes all the difference, and it means that I can carry on doing this for as long as it's interesting for both of us, I suppose. The Magnificent Sons is out on paperback in April, but you know that already if you've watched the previous video. Thank you for reading all my stuff and for following my tweets and all that nonsense. I'm going to be quiet, I think, for the first while of 2021 because I have a third novel to edit, and that's due in kind of quite soon. Try not to think about it too much until I have to think about it. I hope that next year is a better one for everybody. I have had a couple of really terrible years on the bounce now, so I'm hoping that 2021 is going to be more uplifting, even if things never will be the same again. I hope that you stay healthy for 2021 and that you get everything you want, as long as it's not something that I want. So without further ado, here I am raising a glass of non-alcoholic gin with some tonic in it and some rapidly melting ice in a glass that's too big, saying Happy New Year and thank you very much. Bye bye.